Billy rips up Jack's contract and throws it in his face. Diane left speechless. On the coming explosive week of the young and the restless, Genoa City becomes ground zero for a brutal Abbott family showdown that no bone sees coming. Not indeed the ever-calculating Jack Abbott himself. The pressure has been stewing for weeks, ever since Jack tried to still recapture control over the future of Jabot by drafting a non-public contract that would effectively sideline Billy from any meaningful authority. But what Jack didn't anticipate was Billy chancing out before the essay dried. And when Billy eventually gets his hands on that contract, the fallout is instant, public, and ruinous. It all begins inside the satiny administrative office at Jabot, where Jack Abbott stands behind his office with the calm authority of a man who believes he's guarding his family heritage. Across from him, Billy Abbott is visibly shaking, not with fear, but with rage slightly contained beneath a tight, nearly amused smile. He holds the contract in his hand, the runners slightly crumpled from how tightly he's been gripping them. Jack tries to keep his voice steady as he explains that the document is simply a temporary restructuring agreement, a necessary step to stabilize the company after Billy's recent impulsive opinions. But Billy isn't buying it. He reads audibly the clause that strips him of his administrative voting power and reduces him to a conventional co-CEO with no real authority. The room grows colder with every word. Diane, standing still near the door, watches the battle unfold with growing alarm. Diane Jenkins has fought too hard to rebuild her place in the Abbott family to see it buckle now, and she knows Billy's temper is changeable when he feels betrayed. Billy laughs an unsettling, concave sound, and accuses Jack of always seeing him as the reckless scroop who needs supervision. He reminds Jack that he has risked everything for Jabot before, that he has proven himself time and again, yet his own family still doesn't trust him. Jack counters that leadership isn't about passion, it's about discipline and foresight. He insists the contract is meant to cover the company from Billy's volatility, not discipline him. But that word, unpredictable, sets Billy off. In one nippy, dramatic stir, Billy rips the contract straight down the middle. The tearing sound echoes like a projectile in the office. He tosses the shredded runners in Jack's face, the pieces fluttering to the bottom like confetti at a burial. Diane gasps, authentically stunned into silence. For a moment, no bone moves. Billy steps near to Jack, his voice low and violent as he declares that he's done being managed, done being undervalued, and done letting Jack mandate his worth. He warns Jack that if he wants a war over Jabot, he's about to get one. Jack, visibly shaken but refusing to back down, tells Billy that he's making a mistake he can't undo. Billy fires back that Jack formally made that mistake the alternate he drafted that contract behind his reverse. Outside the office, whispers begin to spread among the staff. The Abbott sisters have always disaccorded, but this feels different, further particular, more final. Word snappily reaches Kyle Abbott, who's caught between fidelity to his father and a complicated history with his uncle. Kyle knows that a divided Abbott front could spell disaster for Jabot's challengers staying in the bodies. Meanwhile, Diane struggles to find her voice after Billy storms out. She urges Jack to review raising the situation, pointing out that public dissension could destroy everything they've worked to rebuild. But Jack's pride has been wounded. He insists that Billy forced his hand. Diane can see the mistrustfulness flicker in Jack's eyes, though he no way wanted it to go this far. Across city, Billy confides in Phyllis Summers, who's further than willing to fuel his wrathfulness. Phyllis argues that Jack has always controlled the narrative, painting Billy as unstable while situating himself as the responsible heir at law. She suggests that perhaps it's time Billy stops playing by Jack's rules altogether. The idea of forming a rival adventure, or indeed partnering with a surprising supporter, begins to take shape. Billy's resentment isn't just about the contract, it's about decades of feeling overshadowed. He recalls nonage moments when Jack was praised as the golden boy while he was scolded for every misstep. That history bleeds into the present, making the contract feel like a final evidence that Jack will no way see him as an equal. Back at the Abbott manse, Diane tries to intervene, prompting Jack to call Billy before effects helical beyond form. She reminds him that family fractures can come endless if pride isn't swallowed in time. But Jack believes Billy needs to cool off and realize the consequences of his conduct. What Jack doesn't realize is that Billy isn't cooling off, he's strategizing. By the end of the week, Billy begins reaching out to crucial Jabot board members, subtly intimating that Jack's leadership may be outdated and exorbitantly conservative in a fleetly evolving request. The battle lines are drawn. Diane finds herself decreasingly isolated, alarmed that the fragile peace she fought so hard to earn is about to shatter. Her silence during the battle haunts her. She wonders if speaking up in that moment might have changed the outgrowth. Meanwhile, Kyle confronts his father about pushing Billy too far. Jack defends his decision as a necessary safeguard, but Kyle warns him that alienating Billy could produce an adversary far more dangerous than any commercial rival. The emotional stakes rise when Billy returns to Jabot for a board meeting, cool and composed, as though the explosive office showdown no way happened. The pressure in the room is palpable. Jack maintains a professional facade, but every regard between the sisters carries the weight of undetermined treason. Diane watches from the sidelines, her usual confidence replaced by apprehension. She knows that if Billy succeeds in rallying support, Jack's position could be at threat. And if Jack retaliates, the damage could be unrecoverable. As secrets face and alliances shift, the ripped contract becomes a symbol of further than just a business disagreement. It represents the breaking point in a lifelong contest. The Abbott heritage, once a source of pride and consanity, now hangs in the balance. By Friday's thriller, Billy delivers a nipping advising he's no longer fighting for blessing, he's fighting to win. Jack gapes back at him, realizing that this time, his youngish family isn't bluffing. And Diane, left speechless in the wake of it all, begins to question whether the family she worked so hard to return is fated to gash itself piecemeal from within. The fallout from Billy's explosive act inside Jabot doesn't fade. It intensifies, spreading through Genoa City like a shockwave that rattles boardrooms, living apartments, and long-buried precariousness likewise. On The Young and the Restless, the ripped contract becomes the most talked-about document in city, indeed in pieces. Staff tail in elevators. Sidekicks change nervous ganders. Investors begin making discreet phone calls. The Abbott name, formerly synonymous with consanity and prestige, now feels precariously divided. And at the center of it all stand two sisters who no longer fate each other as abettors. Inside the Abbott manse, Jack Abbott paces the living room late into the night, replaying the battle in his mind. He tells himself he did what any responsible CEO would do, cover the company from gratuitous threat. But beneath that defense lies commodity further particular. Billy didn't just tear up a contract. He tore open injuries Jack has spent times pretending were healed. He remembers their father's prospects, the pressure to be perfect, to lead, to no way falter. Jack internalized those norms. Billy mutinied against them. And now, decades latterly, they're still locked in the same battle, just with advanced stakes and sharper consequences. Upstairs, Diane Jenkins sits alone, gaping at her reflection. She has fought to be accepted again, to rebuild trust after times of reproach and dubitation. The last thing she wants is another Abbott civil war. Diane knows that if Jack loses control of Jabot, or worse, if Billy intimately challenges him, the family fractures could permanently damage her fragile standing. She resolves to intermediate, indeed if it means risking Billy's wrath. Across city, Billy Abbott is anything but regretful. He meets with crucial board members at a quiet, upmarket Chesterfield, presenting himself as calm, visionary, and set. Gone is the impulsive image Jack loves to emphasize. In its place is a strategic driver who believes Jabot's future demands invention, bold accessions, and aggressive expansion. Billy frames Jack's leadership as conservative to the point of recession. He doesn't attack his family tete-a-tete, at least not intimately, but the recrimination is clear: Jabot needs new energy. Word of Billy's maneuvering snappily reaches Kyle Abbott, who feels decreasingly torn. Kyle understands commercial ambition. He has it himself. But he also understands the cost of pride. He confronts Billy intimately, asking whether this is really about business or about proving commodity to Jack. Billy doesn't deny it. He admits that he's tired of being seen as the liability in the family. He insists that he loves Jabot just as fiercely as Jack does. He simply refuses to be sidelined again. Meanwhile, the ripple goods extend beyond the Abbott circle. Victor Newman hears about the internal disharmony and incontinently senses occasion. Victor has long admired Jack as a rival but no way hesitates to exploit weakness. He instructs his platoon to cover Jabot's stock movements and still explore ways to subsidize on insecurity. For Victor, this isn't particular, it's strategic. But the idea of the Abbotts tearing each other piecemeal clearly doesn't fail him. At Newman Enterprises, Nikki Newman warns Victor not to underrate the emotional volatility of a family feud. She knows firsthand how pride can cloud judgment. Victor skirmishes off her enterprises, confident that he can remain detached while serving from the chaos. Nikki, still, senses that this could helical beyond commercial maneuvering and into commodity far more destructive. Back at Jabot, pressure escalates during a critical board meeting. Jack presents a precisely constructed 5-time plan emphasizing sustainable growth and brand refinement. His tone is steady, authoritative. Billy listens without interruption, also counters with a bold indispensable bone. That includes high-threat investments, cutting-edge technology hookups, and a marketing overhaul designed to capture youngish consumers. The room divides nearly incontinently. Some board members are amped by Billy's vision. Others sweat the adventure. Diane watches the exchange with a tensing casket. She sees how fluently the room shifts toward Billy when he speaks with conviction rather than defiance. It dawns on her that Jack may have undervalued his family's elaboration. After the meeting, she urges Jack to consider concession, a participated action that blends caution with invention. But Jack resists, interpreting concession as concession. The emotional core of the conflict deepens when Billy returns to the Abbott manse to recoup particular lines. The air is thick with history. He and Jack exchange cropped words at first, but soon the discussion veers into old home, nonage comparisons, maternal favoritism, perceived backstabbings. Billy accuses Jack of always demanding to be the idol. Jack accuses Billy of sabotaging stability just to prove independence. Diane enters interior, trying to diffuse the argument, but her presence only heightens Billy's dubitation. That she influences Jack's opinions. As the week progresses, public perception becomes a factor. A business intelligencer catches wind of the internal disagreement and publishes an academic composition questioning Jabot's leadership cohesion. Investors reply. Stock prices wobble. Jack realizes that what began as a private power struggle now threatens public confidence. Billy, still, sees the composition as confirmation that translucency might force necessary change. Suddenly, Phyllis Summers inserts herself deeper into the situation. She encourages Billy to lean into the narrative of reinvention, to position himself as the forward-thinking volition to outdated scale. Phyllis thrives on bouleversement, and while she claims to support Billy tete-a-tete, she also relishes the prospect of Jack being destabilized. Kyle, hopeless to help endless damage, proposes a mediated discussion with a neutral third party. The idea is met with dubitation. But Diane still supports it. She fears that without intervention, the contest will calcify into commodity unrecoverable. The turning point comes during a high-profile product launch event. Jack and Billy are listed to appear together on stage, projecting consanity. Confidentially, pressure is electric. Diane pleads with both men to maintain countenance. For a brief moment under the bright lights, they do, smiling, shaking hands, delivering polished reflections. But during a live Q&A, a journalist asks directly about rumors of leadership conflict. Billy hesitates. Jack begins to answer diplomatically, but Billy interrupts, admitting creative differences and intimating at forthcoming changes. The subtle divergence in messaging is unmistakable. By the end of the night, the Abbott sisters stand on contrary sides of the room, girdled by separate circles of abettors. Diane realizes that silence is no longer an option. She approaches Billy intimately and admits that while she supports Jack, she also sees his eyeless spots. She asks Billy what he truly wants, not vengeance, not confirmation, but outgrowth. Billy surprises her by admitting he wants respect. Not conventional titles. Not guarded oversight. Respect. As Friday's thriller approaches, Victor makes a calculated move, acquiring a small but strategic block of Jabot shares through a third party. The purchase isn't large enough to spark alarm yet, but it's significant enough to count if divisions continue. Nikki confronts him, questioning whether exploiting the Abbott's pain is worth reigniting old battles. Victor responds with characteristic certainty: business is war, and vacillation is defeat. Back at the Abbott manse, Jack receives word of unusual stock exertion. The consummation hits him hard. His feud with Billy has opened the door for an external trouble. For the first time since the contract incident, Jack's wrathfulness shifts toward urgency. He calls Billy, not to argue, but to advise him. The occasion ends with the sisters facing each other formally, more this time not across an office, but across a brewing extremity. The torn contract may have represented division, but Victor's maneuvering threatens commodity far larger, the veritably independence of Jabot itself. Diane watches them from a distance, hope fluttering that maybe an external adversary could negotiate what pride could not, forcing consanity. But in Genoa City, consanity is no way guaranteed. And as alliances shift and intentions collide, one verity becomes sorrowfully clear: ripping up a contract was only the morning. The shockwaves from Billy's recalcitrant act continue to resonate across Genoa City, and on the young and the restless, the Abbott family saga deepens into commodity far more dangerous than a stock contest. What began as a ripped contract now threatens to evolve into a commercial siege, an emotional reckoning, and a battle for heritage that neither family is completely set to lose. The morning after Jack discovers the suspicious stock movement, the atmosphere inside Jabot is tense with anxiety. Jack Abbott arrives earlier than usual, determined to get ahead of whatever initiative is unfolding behind the scenes. He calls an exigency meeting with legal counsel and elderly counsels, demanding clarity about the source of the share accession. Though the buyer remains technically anonymous, the pattern is unmistakable: advised, strategic, and evocative of a familiar adversary. Meanwhile, Billy Abbott walks into the structure completely apprehensive that his battle with Jack may have opened the door to outside hindrance. He refuses to let Jack shoulder the blame alone, though he won't admit it outright. Pride still lingers between them, thick and stubborn. Yet there's a flicker of reticent recognition in Billy's eyes. This is no longer just about respect. It's about survival. When the sisters eventually sit down together in Jack's office, ironically the same room where the contract was destroyed, the tone is markedly different. Gone are the sharp brickbats and raised voices. In their place is conservative urgency. Jack explains the stock accession in blunt terms. Billy listens precisely, his jaw tensing as he connects the blotches. Only one person in Genoa City has both the motive and the means to exploit Abbott division so precisely. Across City, Victor Newman reviews request reports with measured satisfaction. He has not declared war. He has not made any overt pitfalls. But he understands timing better than anyone. Victor has always believed that the most effective strikes are those delivered when opponents are detracted. The Abbott sisters' public disharmony handed exactly that opening. Nikki Newman confronts him in their office, her expression grave. She reminds Victor that family feuds are changeable, that despair can make indeed rational leaders reckless. Victor assures her that he's simply guarding his interests. But Nikki knows him well enough to fate the spark of competitive fire in his eyes. This isn't only about profit, it's about dominance. Back at Jabot, Jack and Billy reluctantly agree on one thing: they must present a united front, at least temporarily. The pressure between them hasn't faded, but it's been transcended by a common trouble. They draft a common statement reaffirming leadership stability and denying any internal extremity. The wording is careful, professional, polished. Yet beneath the commercial language lies fragile trust. Diane Jenkins watches this uneasy armistice unfold with conservative sanguinity. She knows how snappily pride can reignite conflict, but she also sees an occasion for conciliation. Intimately, she encourages Jack to view Billy not as a liability but as an asset, someone whose boldness could annul Jack's caution. Jack doesn't respond incontinently, but the idea lingers. The board meeting that follows is tense but focused. Billy surprises several members by openly admitting his disagreement with Jack's before contract move. Rather of weaponizing it, he reframes it as substantiation of passionate investment in Jabot's future. He speaks not as a rival CEO but as a family determined to cover their father's heritage. The shift in tone is subtle but significant. Jack follows by intimately affirming Billy's benefactions to the company's recent growth enterprise. It's not unreason, but it's recognition. The room senses the change. For the first time in days, query gives way to conservative relief. Yet the peace is fragile. Rumors continue to circulate in business circles, fueled by academic media reports. Judges question whether the Abbott consanity is genuine or simply strategic. Stock prices change with each tale.